one manifestation for 5, a fear manifestation, is actually the monologuing thing. You know,
that's good.
Like an oversharing spew.
Hearing you guys talk about like, oh, what is considered true has to be bullshit, or however you guys framed it, is just like really puts into perspective of like, oh, I'm the 6 fix because that is insane. That is like crazy lunacy that will just that's like how flat earthers got here.
The big hormone enneagram.
I'm John Lekovich, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing-1, 963 trifix.
Like and subscribe on Apple and Spotify, and leave us a review. If you want to support the show with a donation, you can find us on Venmo at Big Hormone and paypal.me/Big Hormone.
All right, so my plug real quick is formally announcing the Egypt trip with my friends Lena and Diana. We're going to be going March 3rd to the 14th, 2024. Go to egyptretreats.com to get info about it. I spoke plenty about Egypt on this pod, but just to say a little bit about it, I think Egypt is incredibly inspiring and transformative for anybody who's ever gone there. And we're going to go looking at the origins of the Enneagram, the fourth way, the Western spiritual tradition through the symbolist lens. It should be really good, really fun. We're going to be on a fucking boat for 5 days. We're going to go to Cairo, Abydos, Luxor, Aswan, drift down the Nile, swim in the Nile, and I'm really excited about it. And Lena and Diana are great. They both, teach yoga and all the kinds of other healing stuff. And Lena's a chef and going to be overseeing the food. So it should be very, very fun and very profound, like serious and fun at the same time in a way that I feel like, like speaking to the 4 of us here and those affiliated with us, that it's like a weird brand of fun and profound that we bring. And so this will be like a real pilgrimage. I'll say, more about it as it gets closer to date, but there is a early bird special that ends on like October 15th. So it's a little expensive. It's $4,400. But prices in Egypt are a lot right now. So, and I think it is a lot of money. We're not making much at all. It is about the trip and, private meditation in the Great Pyramid as well. So pretty amazing shit. And you'll get the full John esoteric fourth way download, all that kind of shit. So hope you all sign up. EgyptRetreats.com.
Cool. Wait, we should probably, if you want, do another Egypt episode to sort of promote it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Does your 5 fix have anything to say about Egypt?
It can come up with a few things, maybe.
Okay, yeah. If you could scrape some things together for next week.
I've
not too long,
that.
but
not.
Don't kill us.
Just a brief overview.
Yeah.
Give us a good 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, don't worry about anything.
I think the anger thing could be kind of cool. We could make that like a series of like, how does each head type experience fear? Because I know a lot of 7s, especially 7-wing 8s, that just like don't relate to being fearful when it's, like, then why are you always on the run? It's because if you're still for half a second, you'll fall into a pit of suicidal depression.
Yep.
That's fear. And exploring 5 fear could be really interesting too, because I don't think 5 manifests as like fear in the way that everybody experiences it, which is like this, or imagines it, which is the 6-ish way. But I think 5 and 5 fix, the manifestation of fear is really obvious to me.
Yeah, how do you see it?
Well, it's just like I cannot consider anything outside because I could be led to the falsity, and so I have to. It has to be of my own accord because you're going to lead me astray. So there's like a way that like the 5 depends on its own mindset because it's actually afraid of being led astray.
Let's I think, I mean, Emeka, your word contaminated, there's like that in the mental center feels like you're it is terror. There is a terror there, like that doesn't kind of make sense, I think, like but there's like a terror of having bought into like a view of reality that is not your own, you know, that somehow you've been, you know, that movie like They Live, you know the movie?
I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's like an old 80s movie, and you've probably seen like artwork based on it where it's like these guys wearing these special sunglasses, and they look at like billboards, and it'll have like obey, consume, and then certain people, when you look at it, are like actually like zombie alien types that are pretending to be real people. So you see like the dark forces in the whole world. It's kind of like that. It's not like a six-ish, like I might get hurt or something, or like I don't know who's gonna abandon me or not. But it's like this thing of I'm not in the world or something. You know, like I've bought into the mind control program or something like that.
It's kind of wanting to have a wall in the mental space. You know, that's kind of gets at the contamination thing.
Yeah,
nothing should get in here or something.
Yeah.
Because if it did, like, I mean, it feels like, I don't know. There's something about, like, if something gets in, like, the whole edifice of orientation you've constructed has no significance and meaning, and it's all, like, it's all arbitrary, you know, it's all meaningless.
Yeah, I think one of the statements we came up with for 5 was just sort of keeping people out because you don't want anything outside distracting from this focus that you have on this thing that you're trying to get to. So it feels like I'm discovering something, and if I really focus, then I can really get there. And if someone comes in and disrupts that, then my focus on this thing that I'm trying to reach is gonna be disrupted. And if you feel like you're just around the corner on landing on something, and someone is like trying to get in there, it's like, well, I mean, I lost it. Like, I can't, you know, the thing that I was trying to get to is gone now because now somebody's like getting me to look at stuff that doesn't have anything to do with that thing that I'm trying to get to.
I definitely agree with you, and I think that that's like a like higher up fear, like because I have this like kind of physical jolt thing I do when I'm focusing and someone walks in or something, but like you know, why do I need to be in that kind of focus as a 5 is because like it's a way to keep out, not just to maintain the concentration, but the concentration is there to like keep resupplying my own orientation that is uniquely mine. And if it's somebody else's, something has influenced me, it feels like my brain got raped.
Yeah, influence is like the word that comes to mind for me with all rejection. And I know that it's both hexad, but there is like a way that frustration likes to react against the influence, whereas rejection just doesn't want to deal with it at all. Like contamination to me is more of a rejection word than a hexad in general word, because it's like I cannot be influenced at all because it will contaminate the project I've got going on. It'll contaminate my environment. If my environment's influenced, it'll be contaminated, it'll be fucked up. If my gaze, you know, like the way I see myself is influenced, it'll be contaminated and fucked up, and then the bad thing will happen, you know, and same with the 5. It'll be like led into hell or something.
Another piece for me there that's maybe getting at an aspect of the fear element is like if the 5 or 5 fix is so zeroed in at really specific points, then in a way that's just not a good way to orient to the world in the bigger field, right? It's like you're too focused into certain points, and so you kind of don't know the map anywhere else, and so that's threatening. Does that make sense?
Very true. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what keeps it, like, reinforces this is my niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good, actually. Yeah, it's like I knew that, but there's like a way there's like a field that's exposing, where it's not necessarily just like a fear of influence, but it's like fear of being exposed to what they don't know or something like that.
It's kind of a fear of being small, right? Because to be at these one hyper-specific points, you don't have this bigger, I don't know, wider strength or something, or size.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's interesting.
What kind of comes to me with that is the like Lovecraft kind of demon, or like there are these existential, beyond comprehension, too big of monsters, and the avarice, it comes from a sense that like myself, my personhood is not like robust enough to like be fully exposed in the world. Like that's it's like a poverty of selfhood, something like that.
It comes up in Radiohead songs. Tom York has a 5-wing 4 where there's this big something that is maybe even represents, that I don't know, wider, robust, I don't know, muscularity or something that the 5 doesn't have, or something.
I don't know Radiohead's music very well, but I mean, I think that's like the 8 line of 5 is suddenly like, I'm not so big, like I'm not so generative, I'm not so like this push only has so much gas,
right?
And I gotta kind of like
interesting
retract. I'm overexposed or something.
That's kind of cool. Is there a similar kind of thing we could do with the 2's line to 8? I know it's the other direction.
8's line to 2?
No, 2's line to, 2's line to 8. Like something, it's just all like rejection stuff, I guess.
You're just curious about like what it means when 2 goes to 8?
Yeah, kind of like playing with that same thing. Like if that's a running theme with rejection, but I'm not necessarily saying that it is.
But and it meaning the smallness of self?
Yeah, the like I like the idea of 5 kind of like the 5 line to 8 is kind of being willing to be like, I can't remember, David, how you said it, but like girthier or something like that. And the 8 line to 5 kind of recognizing, oh, there's limits here, let me go back and like reassess, kind of. Never mind, I'm just going off in a direction.
I know, I think I'm following you. Just some of the words you'll say is like that, you'll use that, and then I can't quite know what that is that you're referring to. But I think with like 2 going to 8, I mean, there's a certain, it's still in reaction to shame, but there's a sort of shamelessness in a certain way too, where they are, they're giving gaze, they're offering attention and seeing and healing, and then there's a control in that, and just 2's like home base at 2, But then when they go to 8, it's sort of like making that subtle control and that like loving control, then just fucking overt control. It's like, here it is, and I'm taking like I'm giving gaze, and it's like this movement from gaze to space. Like I'm taking space now, and making, because I have given you gaze, you're now part of my territory.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so there's that possessive thing where it's like, I'm not just like, you're not a separate object that I'm loving and seeing and delivering to. It's like, oh, now you're in the boundaries, and I get to say what goes on here.
Yeah. God, that's such a scary line.
Had some experience with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, that could be an interesting kind of series, is exploring fear and all the head types, shame and all the heart types, anger and all the body types.
I mean, I think we just did a pretty good job with 5.
Yeah.
We just keep going with 6 and 7.
All right.
I'm
Let's
gonna close
go.
the window.
6, the fearless.
Yeah.
The fearless
Fear
type.
itself.
Yeah. Fear of the lies.
So what?
All right. So we're going to finish fleshing out 5, and then we'll move on to the fearless 6.
So, like, I guess the gist of what you were saying is that it's the core of it. The reason, beneath the need to focus on this one thing is this fear of being overwhelmed by the world, being overwhelmed by outside influence. I mean, by the rest of the map, basically. Yeah,
and the way what I said it was like, it feels like your mind being raped. I think is the real fear. Like, I think that, like, I've experienced that kind of fear, and given the way I've observed 5s, like, just putting that energy into needing it to be not only like an original perception, but also like the schizoid distance they're putting between themselves and reality. You know, is this don't contaminate me? I think, like, deep violation. And I think it's the same thing with 8. I mean, it's the same rejection fear is this, like, profound sense of violation that they're needing to put a huge wall up against, but it's like through the lens of their center.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because, I mean, even when a 5 is like, oh, I'm working on myself and I'm going to be more in contact with reality, it's like, but not here.
Right.
And I don't even know. I mean, maybe you guys can offer, but like how even you work on that.
Well, partly to that point, one of the things with 5 is, you know, let's say wanting to be more in the world, which requires a certain kind of more contact with presence in your own body. And 5s are, let's say, trying to do that, if they're trying to do that, with the mind, right? And so that's one of the flaws, let's say, is they're trying to put it together in a granular mental way.
Yeah, I mean, me and Joseph, when we did our 4-on-4 thing, talked about getting stupid as a, like, mechanism of overcoming 4-ness. But I think 5-ness is a similar thing. But I'm curious, like, nothing's coming to me at the top of my head, but, like, what would it mean for 5 or 5 fix to get more receptive in the head center? Like, what if they're afraid of opening to something? Like, how can they actually open without just burrowing more into a schizoid space? Like, what's the difference between opening and contamination?
I wonder if it's more of like, at least the way I experience it for me is, like, I decide where and how I'm going to be open. So if I say these are the open channels, and I can do open here in this contained zone. I mean, that's one of the biggest things of the last 5 years or whatever is just learning how to have different zones of openness. So it's still in some ways contained, but it's like, okay, here I'm open, here I'm open. So it's like, it's maybe like still controlling the unexpected opening. Like, that's not going to happen. But if I'm going to decide that I'm going to be open here, then it's okay. I can create more zones of openness versus I'm just wide open to just, you know, be penetrated by whatever.
So it's like permission, basically.
Yeah. That's a big part of it, I think, is, well, it was before, it's like I wasn't open at all. Like, I wasn't talking to anybody, and I thought I could do everything myself. Now it's like, all right, I can do openness in these little pockets here and here, but it still has to be contained. It can't be like a completely wide open thing.
Yeah.
You guys have any comments on the manifestation of fear for 5? I know that's kind of similar to what we're talking about, but, like, how can you tell when a 5 is fearful? I guess it would be like, I mean, the first thing comes up is just like when anybody's triggered, they get more fixated in their type, right? So if they get even more granular, even more narrow, even more rejecting, that would be like the fear response. But I don't know. Like, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, one manifestation for 5, a fear manifestation, is actually the monologuing thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's good.
Like an oversharing spew, and
That's so real.
and it's usually always relative to their dominant instinct, and it has the quality of, and this I guess is a reflection of the fear. It has a quality of, you're not invited to the conversation. I need to keep going down this one track, and again, not going to be contaminated by, anybody else's thoughts. It's kind of a one-way conversation.
Yeah. One-way conversation is true.
Yeah, it's like forcing out words to drown out any space for anybody else. And that's one of the things, too, that is, like, for listeners, confused about 9 and 5, is that, like, 9s will, like, go on and on about some shit, but it's not the intensity of trying to drown you.
No.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, a 5, for how, in a sense, small they can experience themselves and even come across, when they're in that space, it's like, it's very draining for other people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like, just like
a fire hose coming at you.
Fire hose, no way in. And I've seen 5s who have been very influenced by an outside thing. And I don't mean like the negative orientation got in, but like, let's say it's more like their thinking is not actually original or as original as they want it to be. And they have to maintain this originality of insight narcissism. And so I've seen 5s like take other people's ideas and speak on them as they're their own and distort reality in kind of like, we've talked about like where 8 will kind of like distort reality, like this is how it is, and to kind of not budge on that thing. 5 will do the same thing, whether it's like what the idea is or where it came from or how it developed. And it's like this, it is a greed, it is an avarice of, it's like not generous in the head center. So it's like, no, it's actually my idea. And actually, if it's somebody else's idea, it's actually because I put my idea in their head first, and then it became my idea. This kind of a thing.
Yeah, 5s are super overwhelming. They're like completely either not there, or they're so there you can't think for yourself.
Yeah, it's funny that we when we get these typing videos that with the 5s, you either get like almost like a mute person who's basically not giving you anything, or you get one of these like spewing 5s that just go on this long, they're giving too much. And it tends to be like the 6-wing 5s that are the most secretive, paradoxically.
Interesting.
Oh, no, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, the 6-wing 5s are the most guarded. And even just as a fix, that's like one of the clues.
Yeah.
And then the 5s are going to be so comfortable with their separateness that they'll just spew endlessly.
This is all reminding me, too, of we've talked about it before, I think, way back. The thing, those drawings on the psychic structures thing of Riso, where all 3 rejection types have this thick arrow going up. It's like this congealed unidirectional energy that is, has a force to it that's coming up from the unconscious or something like that.
All of this like libidinal energy being forced out.
Yeah.
And it's, in the way Josh describes it with his developmental view centers thing is like filling yourself up with gaze, or filling yourself up with your own orientation, or filling yourself up with your own will, so that it's like it is to drown out anything that could come in.
Yeah.
Like Emeka with a 5 fix, how do you experience 5 fear?
It is, from like the sexual instinct point of view, it does feel like there are these creative little pockets, and each one can produce something really unique, and I'm really identified with the sort of organism of each pocket. But in those spaces, I'm really open, it feels like. But I start to experience my closed offness when those pockets, some outside influence wants to contaminate what I think It's like, oh, this is like really, this is really distinct. And so it's sort of like an experiential, from the body center is like experiential zones of things. And so like, even like the zones, for example, that shit really fucks with me. Like if we have a bad zone, like the fact that there's a holding environment and certain elements there and you have the wrong element, I really feel that. And so that's sort of like, that's 5 fixed from the perspective of core 8 holding environment. It feels like my life is a series of pockets of zones where I experience like a creative field, and the elements that are in that that are allowed to be in that field is something that, and how they mix is something that I'm really identified with. And so when that's going wrong, that's like the worst fucking thing.
Is it like a scarcity of creativity that sort of your personality is kind of precious around?
I wouldn't say it's a scarcity. It's just like, it's like the wrong, let's say like we're all musicians and we're making good music, and I really like the music that we're making. It sounds great. I'm getting high off of it. And then the person comes into the room and the wrong musician, the wrong instrument, they're playing the wrong notes. And it's just that feeling of hearing the good music that you've been enjoying getting fucked up. That feeling of wanting to rip your skin off and smash something into the wall, because it's like, everybody stop. You leave. That you have to, you have to remove that element. And so I don't necessarily feel, I just feel like finding some magical thing is hard to do. And then once you find it, it's like you're on this edge that you can fall off that edge pretty quickly or pretty easily. And so sort of like there's this, maybe it's an 8-5 thing of you create a zone. You're trying to find a zone, and it's really hard to get to. It's really hard to find it. And once you find it, it's like, everybody stay still. Don't fuck it up.
or nobody else come in.
Yeah. Like we have
these
something.
walls.
Right. Like we got it. Like I used to hear about, I was reading about Miles Davis, who I think 8 Wing 9, 5 Fix, self-pressed sexual. And his work style was really interesting to me, because he's like made some ridiculously inventive albums in jazz. And so what he would do is he would get like maybe 4 different musicians, but they're really different. Like they have different styles, and he would put them together in a room, and he'd just give like a very simple, basic prompt and direction of, here's where we're going to go. But he's just sort of trusting their creativity to sort of like create some magical shit. And you look at these albums, you're thinking like, how the fuck did this happen with that very little direction? But it's partly like the right people with the right prompt, and just, maybe you sort of guide the chemistry as you go along. Like, what to do to sort of like keep it on a certain track. So it's this feeling of like, there's like a sliver of something experiential that can be found. And like, once you find it, it's like, all right, let's stay here and let's make some magic, and so that's what it feels like. And so when someone comes in and fucks it up, it's like the level of rage, because like you can't get it back again. It's like you can't recreate it.
Yeah.
Like if you have it, and try to like, get what you're trying to get out of it. But no, I really, really identified with that, because that sort of magical moment, you can't like make it happen again the same way.
You didn't agree, but the way I interpret that is like kind of a scarcity, view. Like
that's true.
And like I resonate with that a lot. That sense of like if I mean, what I think 5 really represents, probably the clearest out of all the hexad types, is how brittle the hexad identities are.
Yeah.
And I think 5 just is the most like apparent flavor of that, where it's like, if anything moves this, like it's all fucking start from scratch. You got to throw it all out after this.
Pretty much.
Yeah. To the point about brittle, I mean, like one of the images that comes up with 5 a lot is an insect, like a hard-shelled insect, and that gets at that smallness thing and the brittle piece.
Yeah, and the alien thing.
Yeah, and the alien thing. There's this one, I'm contained in this one small space, and because I'm small, I have to harden up even more, right? Something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that makes sense. If I think about it, those magical moments are very scarce. Like, it doesn't happen very often. And even, just like the first zone where it's like we found something and, Josh is coming down the stairs and Dave is like, we're in the zone. That basically, imagine my life is like a series of that. Like we have something and then somebody walks in and is like, don't move. That's my life.
Don't even breathe.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of the time you don't have that. So like, whenever it feels like I'm finding something, that's where I'm like, yo, just stay out. Don't even fucking, we got something here. But totally. Outside of that, I feel flexible. But in that zone, it's like, okay, this is it.
Right. Yeah. I get that way sometimes, like just even basically I will go on these sprees of binging information, and it's kind of like piling so much shit in my head that it's like arranging the mental room where like I'm on the verge of an insight because these things are mixing at such a high vibration that I'm like, if anything else comes into my brain right now, I will kill everybody and myself, because it's like,
right.
It's like almost there. And I had these things where, yeah, it's like I can't let anything else tip the scales while it's like,
right.
And and then I'll get fucking angry if anything, any feather or piece of dust in that mental palace hits wrong.
Yeah.
But I also get it like not about information, but in terms of like my like creative vision with painting. Like, one of the things I feel grateful for is like I obviously have narcissism around originality of Enneagram ideas, but like my precious is like like my art and my like specifically not even the finished art, but like the vision that goes into it. And that's like why I didn't go to art school, because I didn't want anything to contaminate my creative vision. And so, yeah, so it's like, it's this thing where sometimes I get in the creative zone, and it's just got to be like even like the way my room is a sort of position to be all these inspiring creative like juicers to kind of hit me the right way. And I get absolutely like this, like when I'm disturbed, it's like I'm disturbed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Even talking about it is, sometimes, I know you've asked me this before. So like, what are the things you're into? And it's like, how can I bring anyone into my mind of, what I'm currently trying to figure? I can't even talk about it, because to talk about it now means that you are involved, which is, unless it's like I've landed on the thing, what am I doing? So that sense of, someone, if you feel like you're on the verge of finding something, and sometimes it is like, all right, I want to bounce this off somebody else now. I'm ready to show it to somebody. But a lot of the things are just these little trails that you're chasing that you don't even know what is on the other side, but it feels like you're on the verge of something.
Totally. Do you want to talk about 6 or 7? How you doing, Alexander? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. We can talk
6.
about 6, the type that feels no fear.
One thing that happens a lot in the whole typing space is that 6s, at least half of them, I'd say, don't recognize fear and anxiety in themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's a baseline. I mean, it gets to the point of, like we said before, like you can't use your lens or your set of sensors, which are type-based, to look at your type, right? So if you're in a field that has a constant anxiety chatter, let's say, going at all times, that's just baseline. That's the water you're in, so you're not seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Alexander, do you ever experience fear?
I've never experienced fear in my life. Fear is the mind killer.
I experience you as fearless.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. What's that Dune quote? Fear is the
mind killer.
Yeah, but it's what is the it's the little death that brings total obliteration. And that's why 6 goes to 9. Yeah, it is kind of an interesting thing because like I'm 6 fixed, but there is a way that I didn't realize I experienced any kind of like anxiety or fearfulness until like a few years ago, probably. You know, maybe like 3 or 4 by this point, but there was a while, you know, because I guess it's similar to what David said, where like I experienced myself with a certain kind of like discernment and vigilance, but to me that didn't feel like fear, like motivated by fear, which is crazy to think about now because like what else would that be motivated by, you know? But I didn't experience it as being, I don't know, it's like fearing the worst. It was more just like a management mindset or something like that.
Well, what do you mean management mindset?
It was more like I don't know, maybe this is where like, you know, and I'm not a core 6, so like maybe this is 9 influenced, of course, but there was a way that it wasn't necessarily like I'm scared of something. It was more like I'm just going to do what needs to be done to prevent a certain like bad outcome. Like it's just like simple math. You just don't want the bad thing to happen, so just do what needs to be done. As opposed to like a certain kind of like running away from a monster or something.
My experience with 6 is not. I don't know if this is entirely. There's a consider all possibilities thing. Like I have to run through all possibilities in my mind about what could happen out of this situation, and it's very like automatic, and in a lot of cases like kind of unconscious, like because it's just like David was saying, it's just the water they swim in. But like, you know what I mean, even between you and I, sometimes we'll get into a thing because you're like living 20 possibilities that may potentially stem from some choice or action or decision or something like that. And I mean, you've had to as we've like, you know, learned how to regulate each other better. You've had to tell me basically that you're just going through possibilities and going to the end of them, and I just basically have to be patient with.
Yeah,
because I'll be like, well, that doesn't make any sense from where we're standing. You know, like that's not even happened yet. What are you talking about? Or that's very unrealistic. You know, I'm trying to like competency mental fix it, and she's like,
nuts. Yeah. Well, it's also just like I know it's not happening right now, but it could happen, and so we need to be prepared. But anyway, that's the kind of like. That is what I think is going to be the experience, 6's experience of fear without it feeling like a cinematic fear, right? It's going to feel like responsibility and pragmatism and a preparedness. And of course, these are things that obviously, of course, now in hindsight, especially, they are motivated by fear, right? The avoidance of the bad thing, as David likes to say. But yeah, I don't like my dad is a 6. It's a 6 wing 7 with 1 and 3. And I don't know how much he relates to fear. I think he would much more be identified with what I just said, with responsibility and with pragmatism and with a certain kind of logic. Like 6s love to say logic when it's really just fear.
One way to say it too, the fear thing, or a way that it maybe more easily frames up consciously that 6s could identify with, is the need to know. Right? There's a like doing my elemental frame up with the sundial thing, where 3 is the dawn, 9 is sun at midday, and 6 is sunset. So 6 is kind of the split between night and day, and it's going into the dark of not being able to see, not being able to know, right? And you're split there, and you're worried that you're not going to be able to bring the light into the dark of the unknown. The light meaning that would reveal what there is to be seen, what is unknown.
Yeah, the guiding way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's really good, because even to use Josh's developmental theory of the centers, like 6 is focused on like collecting everybody's map, right? Everybody's orientation, in order to just like kind of mosaic the true map. You know, and I think like where 6 can really practice discernment, because I do think that is like a gift of a 6 that owns its mental center, is being able to discriminate what is good information and what is bad information. 6s are trying to collect every piece of the map because it needs to know the whole thing. And so the withholding of information, or with information being out of sight or just not in their reach, is them just not knowing what's out there, you know. And there's a certain way that that 5 is like willing to go see it for itself, and that 7 is willing to see it for itself. You know, I could actually argue that, but there is like a like it seems like 6 needs every piece of the map as a starting point, and then it will discriminate through all of those pieces in order to like mosaic together the true map.
One thing I'd throw in there too is, I mean, the point of that sundial, attachment triangle piece is that each of the types, the 3, 6, 9, are doing something that's universalistic or something collective. So with 6, a piece of the pressure, anxiety is that 6s are looking for the correct map, not just for themselves, but it's their responsibility to do it for everybody.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, that is really good.
I was recently had a typing interview with somebody who, based on our, like, we're not totally solid on his type, but I'm pretty sure he's an 8-6. And he just, like, you know, he's been very thorough in his research and gone all over the place and everything, but he's like not a fearful guy, you know. Like, he presents pretty tough. He feels very certain. He's the one that starts a lot of like projects and things like this, and but yeah, so like he couldn't relate to the 6 that shows fear or even feels like afraid. And a lot of that seemed, you know, I was mentioning this to Alexandra, and Alexandra pointed out, well, you know, there's a little bit of the 9 there, like kind of in the fearful 6. Not all 9-6s are fearful, but like, you know, sometimes showing your fear or anxiety is a way to almost try to get the environment to. It's like you disown your will in the body center, where the environment will take care of it, or somehow, or like, you know, sympathize. Am I paraphrasing right, Alexandra?
Yeah, that's good.
And so yeah, but this kind of like needing to have it locked down kind of a thing, needing to consider the possibilities, I think this person would probably relate to more, because he was not resonating at all with the fear of 6. But he was really looking for like the right orientation, you know, but had a very like, so even though the phobic counterphobic thing, I think, is like, you know, people make a lot of bullshit around that, there's a kernel of something in that can be applied.
One thing to look at is just how much the wings on 6 can influence that. Like 6-wing 5s can, not in all cases, but they have a much more self-contained version of what 6-wing 7s are up to. Like 6-wing 7s can, I want to get in everyone's mind. I want you to be in my mind all the time and know what I'm thinking. And 6-wing 5s don't seem to be doing that quite as much. Like 6-wing 7s feel like every single time they have to refresh, here's a download of what I'm thinking, just so that we can be connected, or our head centers can be connected. And it doesn't feel like, and that feels way more anxious, of course, but 6-wing fives aren't doing that sort of like mind fuse thing.
That's a good way to think about it. It's like DJing mental orientation. You know? Here we are. Here it is. Here it is.
Yeah, like a constant channel. I always need to channel our mental centers and sync up.
Right. Yeah. There's a certain spray to the 7-wing that I'm repulsed by. I'm just kidding.
You're 6-wing 5 fix, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
She's special.
Don't you remember? That's what makes me special.
Yeah, that's right. That's where all the brilliance is coming from. Is that 5-wing on the 6 fix.
That's the one thing.
The only thing she's got.
She's got.
The one thing I have.
Who said that one time?
I don't know. Some idiot online.
Somebody was like trying to dunk on Alexandra somewhere, and they said, "Oh well, the only reason she's like smart is because she has a 5-wing on her 6 fix or something."
Well, no, I don't think anyone said that. I think they'd made some other comments about why, coming up with the reasons why she was smart, and I think somebody had pointed out she's also Bermuda, and then we started joking around and riffing on. And then we said like, no, it's actually the 5-wing on a 6 fix. That's
or sub-wing overlay or sub-wing.
Sub-wing over, something like. Just go as granular as possible.
Yeah, because it's got to be 6-wing 5 with the 5-wing 4 sub-wing.
Sub-wing, yeah.
Clear. I mean, how could you mistake me for anything else?
It's because she's 145 overlay, of course.
Right.
And Puerto Rican. You got to combine the two.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's the hair. The hair picks up everything. It's multi-directional signal channeling.
Floofy.
Yeah, I've got it all. I really do.
Well, another aspect of this 6 needing to like go over every possibility, kind of like I almost see it as like a Rolodex or something, where they're just like is like interpersonally, I'll see a lot of 6s that will make a statement or do something and then need to kind of call themselves out on doing it, as if to say like, oh, I saw that, like I saw the thing about myself. And I'm like on my end of things, I'm just like, just talking to somebody I like or something like that, but they'll like, oh, well, sorry for this thing I do, or this, and it's like this, 6s have this thing of like, oh, well, if I call it out or if I like see it or something, if I name it, I've got it. I see it. It's like letting me know they see it. And it's like, I see that you see it, but
well, they're trying to preempt being blamed.
Yeah.
They're trying to get ahead of the, you're going to call them out on it. So they're going to call themselves out. And they also do it like by insulting themselves. Like, I know that someone might talk shit about so I'll do it first.
Right. Yeah.
They're over anticipating the bad thing that people are going to say, so they just get ahead of it.
But it's also just like showing you that they already know that, so that they can't be caught, because the bad thing would be to be, how do I say this, to be called out as not knowing what is obvious, right? Something like that. Maybe that's not the right phrasing, but the self-deprecation is, I'm going to say it first so that I cannot be like, I don't know, so the bad thing won't happen to me because you think I didn't know that already.
That partly gets into the collective thing again, too, sort of like needing to catch it, I don't know, for everyone or something like that, or something like that. Yeah.
Part of, so I don't know how far I'm going to get in it, but I've been working on a kind of like basic Enneagram book that's like basic and deep, covers like basically every topic and all this shit. And because everybody's like, what book would you recommend for just the Enneagram in general? And it kind of is like embarrassing to be like, my book, so to actually like make my own book that would be for that. So anyway, I was writing about the essence qualities, and it kind of like occurred to me that like, all right, so for example, if like the essential quality of like essential power, 8s don't just want to feel powerful. I think on some unconscious level, 8s want to be like the power of the universe. they don't like, and that's why like our egoism and narcissism can get all like so crazy, because there's some kind of like, if you're getting in touch with essential power, it's not like your power. It's like your identity is a part of this aspect of essence. And, 4 wants to be like the depth of the universe or whatever. And so I think with 6, 6 wants to be like I wrote, 6 doesn't simply want to know if something's true or not. They want to be the universe's eyes that see what is true and real.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's that energy kind of does get at what 6 is going for, is like that real like all-seeing eye, which gets kind of attributed to 5, but I don't think it's I think that's more of a 6 thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think you guys have used the word insight for 5, and I think that is more true for 5 than 6. Like 6 is more concerned with truth, like the objective, just the harbinger of truth. And we can get to the 7 word, but I think 7 is innovation. Yeah. So I just like that as a distinction between 6 and 5, because I think a lot of people, especially that mistype as 5, say that they're concerned with truth, when truth is not necessarily a 5 thing, at all. Lots of 5s are just like
5 is actually
just way in obscurity.
It's hyper subjective, actually.
Yeah.
In the extreme.
And it's like actually truth in a certain way like is a contaminant.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's too true, I can't see originally anymore.
Yeah.
Like my originality will bend too much toward the objective, and I will lose my true vision, and I'll be blind.
Yeah. Well, even like the word true, like it feels like, we're all just, reality's all made up. And so true is what a bunch of people just crystallized on.
Absolutely.
And that's not really, it's too late. It's already moved past that.
No,
it's
absolutely.
like it feels irrelevant, because it's like, all right, enough people have decided that this is real. Then we've already moved on to something that will become true once everyone else decides that's now the true thing. So it's like, it's not new, it's not original. So
True also gets at the thing we were talking about with 5 relative to having a kind of smallness. True is this big, giant, universal, cosmic true, right? It's a wide, panorama as opposed to a specific.
Well, it's kind of, like, so on one hand, there's sort of 2 levels. Like, because with Emeka,
can you say that again? You cut out just for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's 2 levels kind of that we're talking about, because like what you shared, Emeka, is the 5 fixed perspective, that like anything people come upon or think they know is like true is pretty arbitrary, and actually you can see right through it, and it's all false. And it's both like, I mean, I think that is accurate at the same time as it is like a mechanism for keeping exogenous influence out. And at the same time, there is like, I don't know, I feel like there's like, David, what you were, I don't remember what you said, but it was like pinging me on. There is like a big true that 5 does kind of acknowledge by its omission in a certain way of, like it is too big for my insect body to handle the pressure of, or something like that. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, by omission, it serves as the starting point to veer away from.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Right.
But Alexander, you were deeply giving profound, how do I put it, disapproval. What are you disproving?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not disagreeing with anything, but it's just like hearing you guys talk about like, what is considered true has to be bullshit, or however you guys framed it. Is just like really puts into perspective of like, oh, I'm the 6 fix because that is insane. That is like crazy lunacy that will just that's like how flat earthers got here.
Well, it's on one hand, it's recognizing that, all right, it's not like a 5 fixer is going to be disagreeing with gravity. or whatever. Like, it's recognizing that there is an objective truth, but that objective truth at one point was on the fringe of, it was a new discovery, and it crystallized until eventually it became an objective truth for everyone. And so it's kind of like saying there's truth that it is newly emerging, and I want to find that. I'm not disregarding the objective truth, but it's like, that's old news. Everyone sort of sees that, but I'm sure, like, when the discovery that the earth was round first came around, people were getting killed for it because it was too it was on the edges of what people understood at the time. And so I think 5 is sort of like saying, yeah, cool, everyone understands this, but what's around the corner, and can I find that feeling of landing on something that's around the corner of something that we all understand already, is what, like, the 5 is going for. So it's not like completely disregarding everything. It's something that we all understand. It's like, but it would be cool to find that next thing, it would be cool to find that insight that nobody has seen yet.
Yeah, and it's not giving, like you're saying, it's not giving up on, like, there is an objective reality or something, but it's that people's maps of reality are going to be bullshit. You know what I'm saying? It's
outdated. It's like, everyone understands gravity is real. Like, can we figure out what the next thing is going to be?
Well, it's kind of like, even with our Enneagram stuff, we're like, everybody's kind of got the Enneagram wrong. Like, we're getting on, like, let's get up to the cutting edge, because everybody's the collective map of the Enneagram is, like, really wrong. So, like, let's get more to the original creative shit that would show what the Enneagram actually is, because we do believe in an Enneagram thing. It's just that everybody's map of it and way they hold it as in them is flawed.
Yeah, Alexandra. Take that.
Sorry, touched hit a nerve there.
But it also feels like, all right, we can just keep going over the same idea, like, the sexual instinct. It's like, all right, here's a thought experiment. Let's see if we can find new words. Like, we already came up with words last year. Let's see if we can find new words that sort of open it up even more. So that's sort of like, it feels like this endless drilling of 5 of, like, all right, can I find a new portal into this thing that illuminates it in a different way than what was already established? And it doesn't feel like that can ever end. And so, yeah.
Do we properly address 6?
No, we just keep talking about 5.
There's that one track 5 thing going on.
Yeah.
One directional. What is the orientation?
Do we need to talk about Toxic 7? Are we going there?
I think we properly addressed 6.
David's ready to move on.
Or at least this is just like where the flow is going. I'm ready for 7.
Fix wants to move on.
Yeah, what is the fear? How does the 7 experience fear, David?
The fear is
being bored.
Not enough options. I want possibilities. I don't want to be stuck in only one choice or place. I've described myself as a freedom junkie. So there's I want the full rainbow of color options, tones, flavors. I don't know if I'm getting it.
What if you just had, like, what comes up when there's just boringness for one thing?
He gets mad at the sun.
What was that? Mm-hmm.
Putting an end to a vibe that you like.
Yeah. What happens when there's just one thing? Well, I'm just imagining it. It's frustration. It just feels like I want to jump out of my skin and end it all, because it's just not acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like from my perspective, there's a certain like fear of a punctuation mark that 7 has, and even 7 fixes have, and also there's like this image of like parallel universes that seems to really appeal to 7 and 7 fix, just to a certain degree of like, okay, if this world and this map and this, orientation isn't working, we'll just skip to like, it'll be this one. It'll be like the like list of possible ways that things could be understood, just like need to keep multiplying.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the map goes, this is not original. This is from Alice, who's in the group. I can never remember how to pronounce her last name. Something like that.
I think Nuccio.
Nuccio. This is her insight as a 7 fixer. She says that where 6s are trying to understand the map, and like borrow from other people's maps, and 5 is trying to build their own, create their own orientation. 7 is imagining what's not on the map, like what's like what needs to be added in certain ways. That's my interpretation of it. But yeah, I think her framing of like having to imagine what could be, imagining what's not on the map yet, I think is like a really good framing of 7.
Another piece too is that what I'm generating in the mental center, or what you are, whatever I'm involved in, I want it to be juicy, interesting, entertaining, titillating, get me high, like this could be effervescent and interesting or something, or provocative. And if it's not, like, this is 7, unconditional positive self-regard. Like, why aren't you being interesting? Why aren't these ideas titillating me, interesting me, juicing me up, that kind of thing?
Tell me if this seems accurate to 7, but when I thought of this, it kind of got me in touch with what I feel like is a 7-ish terror, which is that like the mental center is to help guide us and orient us to basically things that are good, right? Things that are good for us, like food or whatever we want, And so part of the thing is like the mind recognizes there's a difference between what is good for us and what's enjoyable. And there's kind of this like clash between the two often. Because often what's good for us is uncomfortable, like lifting weights, or eating spinach, or going through some kind of suffering or whatever. It's like there's this constant almost divide between what, in a sense, like makes sense from the mind's point of view. Like the good thing is going to feel good, it's going to be good, we're going to have some good, and the bad thing's going to be bad. But it's like, and often the things that are the most good feeling and exciting and juicy lead us to ruin and all these things. And there's like, it's like, even like, I'm hungry. Like, I got an apple in the fruit basket, and I take a bite of the apple, and it's like, there's this kind of discrepancy where often the mind's anticipation of the apple's taste is so much better than what the reality, where it's just like this, like, you're kind of like blasting off and then dragged back into chains onto, and it seems like there's something there in the 7.
Yeah, it's reminding me of like the Buddhist, whatever basic statement, life is suffering.
Right.
And so part of what that means, like if life is a soul school that you're, incrementally with each life getting to some better place or something, or some higher consciousness, 7 is avoiding a lot of that suffering piece and the good of suffering.
Right. Yeah. Do you experience part of the 7 fear? Like something I'll notice in some 7s is they'll have this sort of orientation towards like what's exciting and fabulous and whatever, but and they have the unconditional positive self-regard reframed that they're very exciting and fabulous too, but they'll actually be very boring. And I think that there's like a fear that they are part of the matrix of boring. Do you experience that, or do you think that's accurate?
Well, I have that. I think that's also from some other angle. That's also a 9 thing. 9s often have the fear that they're boring. And so I have it based on that as well. I've probably said it before on the pod. I have the sense of, as a 9, I don't deserve to take up space unless 7, I am bringing something interesting, exotic, new, provocative, colorful, etc.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the boring interest versus interesting thing, it seems pretty strong for sevens. Like fear of being bored, fear of being boring. So that whole entertainment machine, personality is entertainment. Like you have to be entertaining to yourself at the very least.
I mean, it seems kind of, Emeka, similar to what you're describing around the 5-ish protection of creative space. Like, seems like 7, like 8, has, and you know, there's the line to 5 stuff, then there's the 8 stuff, which is like the aliveness is dying.
Yeah.
Or being suffocated or
Yes.
choked out.
Yes.
The interestingness. And so I feel like this is really dumb, but if you've ever seen like The Empire Strikes Back, when they like land in the asteroid and they realize the asteroid is like actually it's like this giant space worm, and then they like fly out and you see like the jaws of the space worm closing and they like fly out through the jaws. It's like I feel like 7 has this experience of like have you ever fainted and like everything starts to get like kind of blotchy in your vision and darker and more limited and narrow? Like there's this thing of like the 7 kind of like crawling out of hell as the mouth to get out of hell is like getting smaller and smaller, like the cave's collapsing more and more, and it's sort of like you're feeling your own body becoming more weak and your senses dulling, and you're like trying to just clamber out as fast as you can. It feels like something like that.
Well, that's getting at the 7 thing of not wanting to be trapped. I mean, that's like a trapped kind of image. Like I'm just about to get trapped, so I need to keep running. Yeah.
I guess it's, for me, the confusing thing with 7 is like trapped in what? Like there's some, like I understand boring is that is like the human manifestation thing, but there's like something about that I don't like understand why it's specifically that manifestation. Like I wonder if it's like a being trapped within what is already, you know, like there's nothing more is coming. You know, because like a thing that I experience with 7 is like if they like something, that something has to constantly be a generative thing or they lose interest in it. Like if it's a static thing, eventually they will know it and it will stop stimulating them. You know what I mean? Like and I guess that overlaps with the whole creativity things are the creativity, you know, like the interestingness is dying or something like that. But I wonder if it's like a fear of being limited within what is within reality.
Maybe one angle on what you're saying there is 7 is the assertive type in the head center, and you know, assertion is go energy, it's push energy. Yeah. So if I'm limited to just what is mentally, there's not sort of a willful push into what I want and what I'm after or something.
Yeah, it's this feeling of assertive fantasy that if you find something that's good that you like, then that thing the future has to start building on itself. Like you have to start seeing what's around the corner. That's the new interesting thing. It can't just be cool now and we're staying here. It's like, let's plan out the next year. Let's plan this trip, you know, that's going to be 6 months from now. So it's like you have to keep creating the fantasy or bringing the fantasy into the present. And so that's what it feels like, that 7s are always living in the future of trying to create this ideal fantasy. Or even just talking and thinking about it is like, it can't just be here. Like I have to make sure that this is going to stay interesting, and interestingness is bringing the fantasy into the present, trying to make that fantasy happen.
The rocket thruster needs to stay on.
Yeah,
going
somewhere. That's what it feels like.
I'm still kind of on with Alexandra though, that of like I was like, what is, like when the cave collapses, what is that? What does the cave collapsing mean? Because I understand they don't want it to collapse. They got to keep the rocket going. But it seems that there's some connection to the 5 sense of smallness in its own way, like this sense of inner poverty and having nothing. You know, like 5 is like, I have nothing. I'm just a little insect. And it feels kind of similar to that, where, you know, that gets into the voraciousness of gluttony of like, I have to keep putting something in my mouth because like I'm actually like it's like the smallness of 5 morphed into the scarcity remains, but it's like in a different flavor of scarcity where there's like a deprived. I think 5 feels deprived of like a beingness in the world. And ability to be like robust, whereas like 7, it's like there's a deprivedness of, I guess, nutrient.
Yeah, like what they can feed on. Yeah,
it's kind of like
experience 7 too.
I kind of like had this image of like everything that a 7 could behold is like a molecule with oxygen in it, and it's like as soon as you like engage with it, it's like you're sipping up the molecule, but then there's like no regenerative molecules in the things.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that also makes me wonder about the line to 5. If a different way to understand like a move to the high side of 5 is to get in touch with your own sense of generation, you know, versus just being consumptive.
Yeah,
which is
that's good.
Often how I experience
That's
7.
really
It's just
good.
like they just need to consume, especially being assertive types. Like I think assertive types are going to be really a lot more focused on like what is external, like what is like already out there, and like not necessarily the tangible world in terms of self-pres, but like what's outside. They're out, right? They're pushing. So there's a sense that like what needs to be, I don't know, like the material to work with is already in existence, right? And so the gluttony comes from the sense that eventually those like resources and that like sustenance, that external material is going to run out.
Yeah, they're like so impatient with what is the word you used there? You nailed something that I said, and then my brain lit up.
Regeneration.
Yeah. So they're like so consumptive that they don't let anything regenerate. And they're almost like eating the regenerative soil as it goes with that assertiveness. So they're impatient about the creativity that those things can yield because they're just...
Yeah, but also I think I think it's like what they can yield too. Like
totally.
I'm specifically thinking
That's
7
good.
core. Like I think 7 fix has like a certain flavor of it.
Yeah.
But there's like especially fixated 7s, I just don't see a lot of output from them. I see a lot of consumption from them.
Absolutely.
And so I think, I wonder if the line to 5 is like moving into generation.
Yeah, locus to like,
One way to frame this too is with my overlaps thing, you know, looking at the head center, like SPSX and 5 overlap, 6 and self-preservation by itself overlap, and then 7 is social sexual. So kind of what you're saying there in a way is it's got that self-pres blind thing of kind of not knowing what would really be nutritional and just going for the cotton candy Skittles, you know, champagne bubbles, and it kind of indiscriminately being
Totally. Just going for the candy.
Yeah.
And also everything, because it doesn't quite sit with its own sense of like savoring something, or just like processing or something in order to know like what has a lasting effect.
And doesn't sit with what would actually, you know, give me nutrition.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this got it.
Yeah.
I think this is a good series. We could do anger. Maybe it's a little fresh now, but we could do body center anger next time, and we could do shame, heart center, and even I would find better language than shame, even, I think, because that's confused often with just like being socially humiliated or something.
Yeah, a lot of social types relate to that.
Yeah. A lot of 9s relate to shame in the sense of 9s can have some version of shame just from taking up space. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Cool.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
We did 7 fast, and that's how we wanted it.
Yeah, we spent way too long on 5, and that's how they want it too.
There's a lot to explain.
Yeah, we did a stream.
There's a lot to explain. I mean, you could probably say a little bit more about 7 fear, but yeah, it's hard to understand. Fine. Like, I get 6 fear. Even 5 fear makes sense, but 7 fear, in some weird way, is hard to find. It's harder to find.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because sometimes it's hard for me to. It can sometimes be hard for me to like understand where the fear comes from, but I feel it so palpably with 7. Mm-hmm. Like the like constant chase, consume is like, Jesus, you think you're gonna die if you sit still? What do you? Oh, you're afraid of death? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we felt that at the last New York zone. Like hardcore. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
so it's interesting when I hear 7 not relating to fear or anxiety. I'm like, yeah, you better reflect on that because you're riddled with anxiety.
That happens a lot where seven fixtures, like I don't feel any anxiety, but they're like, manically like chain smoking while they're doing fucking 3 people at once and whatever. Yeah. But it's like the anxiety feels different than our like usual. Like I'm realizing, for example, like as I have like an anxious attachment style, like from the attachment theory point of view, but it doesn't feel like anxiety feels. Like it comes up as anger, or it comes up as feeling taken advantage of, or it feels like some other emotion. But it's like core anxiety.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I feel the 7 anxiety feels like a manic episode. That's what it feels like. It has a very intense frustration edge to it.
Yeah, it's really overwhelming.
I think I've said it before, but there's with 7, there's also like an allergic response. I mean, this is core 7 that I noticed it in, like an allergic response to death. Kind of like you were just saying. There's a thing of, so they're wanting to infuse more life into things than is necessary, and so that has a manic, that there's where that energetic sort of anxiety is so manifest in them. They just keep running because they're trying to aliven everything when everything already is alive or something. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Let's get the hell out of here.
All right, y'all.
Okay. Bye. Bye, guys.
All right. Good night, guys.